welcome everybody. Thank you so much for listening to our INOFO podcast. It's a virtual coffee and cake with INOFO experts and friendly INOFO external experts. Today we have two people here, and I would like to hand over for this podcast, which is funded by an IUCN project, to Floris, our INOFO Pacific convener. Floris, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Yeah, so again, I'm Floris Niu. Thanks, Brendan. Really pleased to meet you. I'm a big fan of BioPure New Zealand, and I'm a huge supporter. My background is I'm an Indigenous or a traditional farmer from Samoa. I don't know how much you know about what I've been doing, but I'm also a craft chocolate maker, making tree-to-bar chocolate tablets for the Samoan and New Zealand markets. In fact, my products are sold in the organic farmers markets in New Zealand, a couple of them in Auckland, and I also sell online. And there's a couple of stores in Tauranga that sell some of my products. But as we said before, today I represent INOFO Global as a farmer, a country convener for Oceania Pacifica, and as a council member, I guess. And I guess for marketing purposes, I use the term organic so that consumers recognize a common language in agricultural practices. However, I haven't been organically certified for a couple of years now because it has been an expensive exercise, and I guess we're going to get into this later on. But I am working actively with PoetCom as a PoetCom member, working under the PGS or Participatory Guarantee System with a few other farmers in Samoa. So I'm aware there are others, people like me in the Pacific, and my journey began in 2014 when I founded a women's organization, which we started off organic. But as I left the organization, the cooperative went in a different direction, and it was no longer organic. So that was a bit of a difficult one in the past. But I guess the proposed themes that we've put down for the discussion today, and some of the issues, some of the triumphs that I've had in my own organic journey, coming from the Pacific, in terms of finding alternative routes to access the organic markets abroad. I have done it really, really differently, and I guess this will be explored a little bit more in our conversation. But that's just a little bit about my background as an organic farmer from Samoa.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Floris. And I do know your chocolate.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I know, I kind of know what you do. And so I've had a little bit to do with cocoa through the Pacific, and I'm currently sort of assisting with a project, long-term project out of PNG, Papua New Guinea.
Fantastic.
Yeah, in that space, not easy. So yeah, talofa lava, bulavanaka, maloalele, for all the people in the Pacific and the rest of the world. We're a big family in the Pacific.
That's right. We certainly are. And I think, today I'm still working in the not the Solomon Islands, the New Caledonia. And we're doing the same thing. We're also that we've done in the Solomon Islands. And there's a number of collectives here and cooperatives. And there are groups of people that are in the process of coming together as a cooperative. But one of the themes or the questions, I guess, that we're discussing today is number one, the tensions between cooperative stewardship, organic standards, and market-driven demands. And as I have been working here for 4 weeks now, I'm seeing a lot of these collectives not knowing what the best option is for them, where to go in terms of becoming either a collective, an association, and so many different types of organizations. Some of them, of course, organic, and some of them are generic farmers. But in the Pacific, there are a dime a dozen, I say, and even informal farming groups. And I think, like anywhere else, there's a common struggle of being able to find enough funding to do the work of the organization, as well as launch any interesting projects that come their way, and also to keep the members motivated and supported. So running and growing an organization is challenging enough, and I feel always when I'm part of an organization that the goals and visions sometimes really exceed the financial and human resource capacity of the organization. So it's really, really hard to adapt and pivot. So in organic co-ops, in my view, and I wanted to ask you, because you have so much experience in this work, is there a common model that is successful in the world currently?
Okay, yeah, great. Kia ora tātou, welcome everyone. I just sort of, and Floris, that was a great introduction into the topic. And so I will address this sort of from the Pacific to a global context, because my experience is same, but different. The issue's the same, but it can have different contexts. So please, what I'm about to share, I'll use some specific examples because I tried to be practical and applied from my own experience and not too theoretical, although there's lots of theoretical models, but my own experience and that. And our company, By Pure New Zealand, we really are built to create this thriving network and help primarily small, medium businesses and organizations thrive. And we want to create this thriving network amongst the community. And that's primarily in the Pacific Rim, which is big, by the way. It covers, the Oceania, Asia, right across West Coast, USA. It's not a small space, but the Pacific Ocean is our home. And it is and there's multiple ports on all its boundaries. So that's the sort of visual. I speak with my hands, by the way, just to warn people. So that's the sort of this rim is our home, and kind of where I live down in Aotearoa at the bottom of that in New Zealand's like this little key. And so the first answer to yourself, Floris, is some of the most successful companies in New Zealand are actually cooperatives, Fonterra and Zespri. They're farmer-owned cooperatives. And people forget that. These are multi-million-dollar organizations driven by farmer base, but they have quite a different business model, and then that's quite an extreme. So when you say, are there really good examples and very successful? Absolutely. And there is a bit of a formula for their success as well, I think. And people can, I'll put in the chat, well, I won't. I will send through to INOFO some of the links for those organisations. They're supported by acts of parliament. So both Zespri and Fonterra, for example, are supported by acts of parliament, because if we want market access offshore, you can't have 100 people going off, because you get butchered in the market. So they collectivise their product and they put that over in a single marketing. So all their money is collected and there's an agreement and they pull that money. But they invest a lot in research. They invest a lot in really strong grower support programs, and it's a full budget. Now, that's they're corporate, but they are cooperatives. They're cooperatives, right? So I'm just saying that's one really. That's an extreme example.
Extreme, yeah.
It is extreme, but I think you can learn from that. There are some learnings, but the formation of both of those organizations took heroic people, individuals. And my experience of working particularly through the Pacific and as I was mentioning, current work in Papua New Guinea. I mean, Papua New Guinea, 800 languages and distinct cultures. It's extremely diverse, complicated, but there are people who are trusted by people.
Yeah.
And they're like nuggets of gold, those people. I mean, I think they're the most precious thing, the people that can pull people together whom others trust to
Yeah.
start something and invest time and energy in people, because cooperatives are all people-based. And let's face it, there's a lot of ego, there's all these issues, but they are remarkable people who communities trust to work amongst different communities and pull it all together. It's like picking up stitches and then slowly pulling it together to form a shape. And I think so the first thing is, have you got the right people?
Yeah.
Who's trusted? And how we wrap around and support those people with all the support they need in order to perpetuate Floris. There you go. That would be my first experience. And that is how both, and I know one of the founders of Zespri, for example, they have a certain personality. So it's a combination of being quite gentle and firm and strong at the same time. It's not an easy job.
Yeah, I think, thank you. I see where you're going, and I actually forgot about the example with Zespri. Zespri have been in Samoa creating a few partnerships and things in Samoa as well with the RSE workers, and I had a little bit to do with it a few years ago. But aside from that, what I'm finding more and more in the Pacific is that there are so many political issues that can hinder a lot of the work that a lot of great people are doing. Probably, as you know, great people are doing work in Papua New Guinea, Solomon Islands. But the geopolitics, political agendas and issues also are extremely impactful on the local communities. For example, here it's been a really difficult climate in terms of politics, and bringing together people from the different tribes to come together and unite over a crop, for example, cacao. And it's difficult. So when you see them, when different tribes are not used to coming together in a place like right here in New Caledonia, it's really difficult logistically, it's difficult politically, it's difficult socially, and it makes our work, us who go into these communities and try to bring together collectives to work together, and it's so difficult in that beginning sense that like what you're talking about in terms of having the right people in there to do the nurturing, and I guess to some extent hand holding, it still makes it really, really difficult when the very tense political things are happening in countries like here in the Solomon Islands.
Yeah, I know. And I never want to underplay that. I'm quite conscious. I live here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, in a fairly benign country town where our biggest problems are often minuscule to others. But a lot of my work's international, and I do deal with a lot of politics, as well in other countries. So there's a couple of things on that, Floris, is that one thing, I tend not to engage in projects that are one-off. I don't. So the PNG one, for example, 16 years I've been waiting.
Yeah.
You've got to be patient, right? And things come and go, people come and go, and the people I've committed to there, working there, are like brothers, and we can confide in one another our frustrations. So this is this people thing again, and having an open heart and being honest and truthful with each other.
Mm.
So one work we've learnt to cut short people that are tricky, contrived, cunning, not interested, see you later, because sooner or later you're going to end up in trouble. And finding good business relationships are no different than good human relations or getting married.
Mm.
You've got to be careful who you get engaged with, right?
Yeah.
Because it can go wrong easy. And there's no problem with being friends and doing short business. We all understand that.
Yeah.
But commitment over time, I think what you're talking about is really important. So there is a role. I think this is where, if we get onto the topic around the market, bringing in the market,
Mm.
because um, what our business does is try to let people see in those circumstances. I mean, I'm not going to change the politics in a country.
Yeah.
I play soccer with a guy. I still play soccer. I play soccer with a guy from Ethiopia, and there's an election coming up. There's no way, anyone else is going to affect that, nor is it going to affect the deep issues that are in the Solomons, that are historical, that are colonial, that go back a long time. So we can start with what we have, work with what we've got, build slowly over time, and the role, therefore, of brokers or people in the market, unique good cocoa, is to ensure that there's a healthy, strong, and demonstrable
Yeah.
market supply.
Mm.
So, because if there's a buyer, if someone wants to buy something from you, all of a sudden there's an attraction
Mm.
because you've got product to sell. And
Yeah.
I think this is where the commerce can play a role. And of course, it needs to have wraparound. There needs to be support for growers and people like yourself and in-country leadership and all of that. We've got to supply. But at the end of the day, the commerce has to be able, and it needs to be transparent.
Yeah.
It needs to be fluid so that everybody understands why the price here and here, all the costing in between, everybody learns. And
Yeah.
it's no trickery or deception on the way. People here go, my God, look at the price here. And part of what we find really powerful is to see, I'm speaking with my hands again, is to explain to people all the costs.
Yeah.
If I ask you to lift one bag of cocoa onto the truck, you might give me a hand and do it for free.
Mm.
And if I said, oh, there's 100 more, Floris, what about it? You'd probably go, nah, it ain't going to work like that. And it's the same all the way along. Who's going to lift your bar of chocolate onto the shelf, and who's going to clean it and dust it? And so this is the costings which we, I think, have often hidden. And
Yeah.
going back to the Zespri model, I've witnessed the Zespri meetings where the marketers tell the growers what price their fruit's getting in what market. It is ultra transparent.
Yeah.
Nothing's hidden. Like you're standing naked, sharing the numbers because they're just numbers. And I think this is the secrecy often around business. If there's secrecy. So that's probably another lesson in this around transparency and fluidity and getting people to understand the market. And I'm not sure of your experience, Floris, but a lot of the time, a lot of the growers have never tasted chocolate.
No, it's exactly.
And that's outrageous. What are you talking about? They don't know what.
Yeah, they have no idea what they've got in their backyard and
Right.
what you. Yeah, but a lot of the work that we've been doing here is introducing to them again their own product. I mean, their own crop and what
Powerful.
they can do, how to eat it, and all of that. It's really exciting work. And what you're talking about in terms of the market. For example, if I take myself, I've done this whole process from woe to go, and it's been it feels like it's been a really long journey. It's only been 11, 12 years. But for me, if it was really hard for me and I have a little bit of education behind me, how difficult would it be for a group of collective women from a village tribe somewhere like here to get themselves to understand how the market access works and how pricing, all of this stuff works, because it's not easy to navigate this kind of, So
no, it's a mountain. So, the role you have, I would imagine, and as we were saying, I've worked with people like you, Floris, is incredibly important, because you kind of become mentor, mother, buyer, educate. I mean, it's
yeah.
and it's a huge weight. But let's be clear, you love it too. So that's right. So you wouldn't do it otherwise, because you're in love with this and the people. And so it's this relationship, it's all relationship focused. And that market access, one of the obviously difficult ones, is markets have different quality requirements and pricing.
Yeah.
And cocoa's doing quite well at the moment, right? And explaining to people over time, it's not always like that.
Yeah.
So you're maybe doing quite well, and this works financially quite well at the moment. What do we do with profit?
Yeah.
What do we do if there's profit? What do we do? And classically, we invest back into the system to build robustness and strength. And so our experience on this and market access, I mean, I think I'm just conscious of the time, and maybe to move on to that market access point, is the buyer is worth two sellers.
Yeah.
If I've got money in my pocket, it might sound harsh, but I'm all of a sudden I've got power to choose, and I can create demands of what I need because I know my market. And I think that's why, again, coming back to transparency, understanding the market, and it's probably a role someone like yourself has, or those in the market, is to really a big issue. I know and it's quite good to stay. It can be with anything, but quality is everything. Biosecurity, phytosanitary. There's all these layers which just become like, oh my God, how are we going to get through this maze? And that's where I do find there are some very good government agencies, NGOs that can do training and assistance. So this network of assistance has to be mapped out, and it does require correct persistence. And the market requirements are the market requirements. And if you can't do it, don't pretend.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't try to bullshit the market, because you'll get pushed back and they'll never accept you again, because that's what you'll be found out to be. So, but I do you know there are people making quality chocolate, and I think this is part of your program as well, in country, right?
Yes, yeah, there is. And I think to use a little bit of my experience with entering the market in New Zealand, it might sound like it's a lot of the things that I've done has been quite accidental or lucky, but I've been able to connect with a lot of buyers, consumers, and people who are interested in the products that I have at the end of the day, not because of the fact that I make that product or chocolate. It's the fact that they know the background, they know what I've done as a farmer, and they know where I've started from and that whole journey throughout. So it's a kind of a trust thing when it comes to that. And one of the biggest bonuses for me was having my market come back to me, come back to my farm in Samoa, and join a tour and really see, is she really legitimately organic? Because we can say we're organic, but at Miss Sunshine Organic Farms, we go a little bit further than organics. And so that whole journey story is really important. But I see when I'm working with people who are new and trying to get into the markets and figure out all these things by themselves, they don't have that. They don't have that kind of background. They don't have that knowledge, education, or even tenacity to be able to go through and tell those stories and be vulnerable and show people where you really started from and where you're going. And I think storytelling is really, really important to help people along the way. I think I've lost my sort of train of thought.
Let me pick up on something with that. While you're gathering your thoughts, Floris, you said something. I've got a question for you, which might help us, because this can go both ways, right? I've always been quite a fan of collaborating with competitors. What we perceive, I mean, the world, I do know, I mean, there's people working in this space trying to create a brand and a market for cocoa through the whole Pacific. And everyone's got its richness of flavors and textures. And here I am talking with my hands again. So these flavors and textures and styles of production, and, a chocolatier like yourself, their own secret recipes. If it was wine, that would be celebrated. And collectively, and so, and again in New Zealand, the wine industry in New Zealand, they collectivize their international marketing, but they compete individually. So there's a place for collective cooperation for people who are but this again requires people with skills and the right personalities to be able to bring people together to go, look, we're stronger together. And I'm a great fan of that. I mean, our national body of organic, I was pretty instrumental in setting up. We've got to work together. I may not like you. I do, but, I may not, theoretically, I may not like you, but together we're better to work together than if we were, because then everyone else benefits. What do you think about that? How real am I? Is that just theoretical, or?
I think to a certain extent it can work. I mean, I believe the same thing as you. I've always tried to work with people, whether they have their own agenda or whatever. But at the end of the day, if the collective, the majority of the people get a good result from it, I think it's worth it. It's also something that hasn't always worked with me in the past, where I've given it a go and it hasn't worked out with partnerships. But it's surely, like you, something that I do recommend to people over time. So stronger partnerships, even if it's with consumers or other people who are doing similar products or similar things. I think it's really important to grow together and to help build the industry that way, because isn't that what New Zealand was built on?
Well, but it's also, look, I'm not kidding. Some people have, we'll use P&G again, but it's right through the world. They have rivalries that go back thousands of years. This ain't easy, and I'm not a guy to come along and go, hey, make peace and sort it out, whatever. And here's the other truth. I'm always the guest. I'm always the guest. And I think understanding the role is very important. It's very easy for me, but we have had success in helping people organize and move. And I'm quite a hard taskmaster, because you can't get to here unless you do here first. There's no shortcuts. So if people want to go, they're going to have to get organized. But we do it in a kind of loving, a tough love sort of collegial fun. But it's not easy, and it takes time, and there's no shortcuts to get it right. I think we all know that. And no backdoor behavior. Anyone who backdoors, see you later. We don't do that. So you've got to control your market, Floris, because you're quite a good example. So you do collectivize. You do a lot. You do a lot, and you actually have market. And so you've got a lot to protect, and it's a lot of pressure on you to to be whom you are, and a sister, a brother, a sister, a daughter, and all of that as well.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of pressure on people like Floris. So it's around wrapping around people and helping them succeed and offering markets and pulling through. So we do a lot of pull through, helping people come along the journey. But you've got to have shoelaces and you've got to have the right socks, and you can't play on that field if you're just like at home in the village. Ain't going to happen. You've got to look sharp. And that's where people often struggle.
Yeah. Thank you. So I guess that answers, I think we've answered some of the practical pathways in a way, through the organic. And what about the safeguards that can ensure market participation? Strengths, I think we've sort of touched on that. Local organic systems and food sovereignty.
So, look, I'm addressing this globally here now. I think we live in a cash economy. So let's not romanticize of the way it used to be. But I am really big. I mean, we also deal with coffee, and a lot of the time, just getting it right locally is the most powerful thing you can do. The food security.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah.
I'm really, really big on that. Don't wrap up a whole lot of coffee and post it down to New Zealand, and you'd supply a good cafe for a week. I mean, sorry, that ain't going to happen. So I'm quite cruel like that. I'm really big on local food security, getting local health. I mean, Pacific people were famous for their beauty and strength and physicality and proud people, and now some of the worst stats in the world on obesity because they're importing most of the food. I mean, come on. So I think one of the most important things is to get the basics right first. Home, immediate family, home, extended family, village, like out we go into that sort of food security. And I mean, I think that's a global responsibility for all humans and their families to do. So
teach people to eat from their cultural landscapes.
Thank you. Something like that. No sweat, no food. That's true, right? If you're not sweating, there's no food. It just doesn't arrive. That's cheap and it can be nasty. So when we're talking about the commodity or the cash economy of cocoa, coffee, these sort of treats, and other pieces, that's an addition to a home economics.
Yeah.
So I would really support, and that's a global thing as far as I'm concerned, and I do a fair bit of travel. And it's here in New Zealand, a lot of farmers, I go to their home, they can't feed me. It's outrageous. Yeah. If I go to a village in the Pacific, they can still do that in PNG, I tell you. It's, they've got the yam and taro. I mean, I get like, I'm eating too much. I come away fat. But when it's imported food, it wasn't that long ago that would be shameful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the proudest moments I've had here on this project so far is seeing the delight and the the people recognizing through their eyes and through their words and their stories when we talked about how important it was to be able to feed their families first before they started thinking about exports, because there are two giants here. One is the government, who's trying to push locals to grow a certain crop and then push it out the door immediately to the marketplace. We're talking about cacao in New Caledonia, who haven't had a history with cacao as much as the other Polynesian and Melanesian countries. So it's really difficult to say to someone, go and plant thousands of trees and then all of a sudden export, but you don't even know and you haven't even eaten this food before, you haven't had a chance to create and recreate with it and value add and all those things. So when I was speaking with the locals about this and how important it was that they ate this food, that they make it part of their own, local food story, they really recognized that. They recognized that and they really appreciated it. And I think that was part of the success of this mission, because it's the last 2 days of the mission now.
Wow, good on you,
And
Floris.
and you talking about that is really.
Oh, look,
Yeah.
to me, I eat from my garden every day, no matter what work I do. If I'm not doing it, I'm not doing it. That's what being organic is. If you're not doing it, you're not doing it. It's a verb. It's a bit like me talking, I don't know, fishing,
Yeah.
but I never fish. I mean, that's just nonsense. So we need to kind of make organic a verb. If you imagine organic as an action, it's not here. It's in our hands, in our hearts, and it's what we do as a daily practice, as a rhythm, and it's a responsibility and a continuity of intergenerational wellness, mind, body, soul, spiritual wellness through food, because it's the most intimate thing we do that we put into our mouths. So when I taste local food, I'm such a joyous, experience for me, because, I know there's sweat gone into that,
Absolutely.
and I feel,
Yeah.
I'm ready to go. Um, and I've experienced that all over the place, but we're seeing this slowly disappear. So
Disappearing, yeah.
part of the organic story is not this export thing. That's way out there, because on the market piece, what I was going to say is looking after you and your family's wellness is a number one priority everyone has. And if you've got something to sell, the best market, if someone comes along and gives you cash,
Mm.
woo,
Yeah.
that's the very best market you can have. You
Yeah.
haven't traveled anywhere. They just come along, they give you some coin. You're like, or exchange. They give you a pig or a chook or some eggs. You go, wow, that's a deal. And you've exchanged. That's the closest chain of the market. And the further you get away, see you later. It becomes more expensive. You've got to service that. It costs, you've got to drive the product or put it on a bus or a truck or whatever. And it costs money in that market economy. I'm not saying that's wrong, Floris. I'm just, when we've got to heal the system and change it. And I'm always a strong believer the Pacific could lead the world in that change. And I include my country in that, because we are Pacific people down here. I may not look it, but we are.
No, number one.
So I was born on an island we call Te Ika Maui, and I was born in a place called Kawakawa, and I live in a place. These are the names of the places I live: Te Henga on the Waitakere. So you may know that space. So West Coast. So it is. We have to start this change and this collectivizing. So I'm just conscious of the time, and I want us to move into this topic around the certification and group collectivizing, and collectivizing as groups compared to individual. Can we move on to that one?
Is that happening now? The collective.
Well, here we go. So I was involved in establishing and there's nothing wrong with ideology and being idealistic. I'm extremely ideological, and I think we can change the world, and we are. And one of the first PGS systems emerged from New Zealand called Organic Farming NZ, and we convinced government to give us some money, and we established this, and it was all about local food, short chain economies, and it was this group scheme, and it was domestic only. Now, awesome. And we're still certified with PGS here in New Zealand. We call Organic Farming NZ our own farm here. There's the logo in the back corner, that one there. That's the logo for Organic Farm NZ. But of course, when we think about it, where do the certification processes, and I know this is a global discussion at the moment, the individual certificate requirement for trade, I've never understood until I was on the iPhone World Board just how dominant the European system is, which is all about the cadastral map. The legal map is all individual plots, and I know this and I know this, but there's no collective cultural understanding of a big wider landscape of which we live in.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So in the Pacific, people would know the whole island's economy and ecology collectively, and they do it through song and dance and ritual and sharing of information and knowledge and experience. So we've lost that, I think, in the West, and so it's not surprising that what we see is the organic, the formality of getting certified. It's a formality. It's a certificate, and I think it's great. But it's an individual, and we've worked very hard in New Zealand with our new regulation to also accept group schemes on par with individual. Now, that's taken a lot of convincing, but it's partly because of the Indigenous persistence here of Māori, people involved in what we're doing here, very diverse community, going, no, we collectivize. And of course, in most parts of the world, Asia, Africa, Pacific, there's a collectivizing of food. But you can't certify every individual. That's just so expensive.
Extremely. Yeah.
So we got to rethink it. We got to say, well, actually, thanks a lot. That was handy. Now we're going to change that into and we've got to feel that we've got the ability and the power to change the system. There. I mean, I feel that we can do that, and we're fairly successful here. It just takes time and convincing, giving good examples, demonstrating robustness, demonstrating trust between peoples, yeah.
Great. But is Hua Parakore, is this a collective that is a certification that is accessible to everyone, and is it less expensive than the generic certification, third-party certification, and how?
Yeah, so it's a verification system, not a certificate. I mean, these are slight nuances. So Hua Parakore for everybody is probably, well, it's a cultural standard. Anybody can be verified to it. You don't have to be Māori, but it's from Māori cultural origin and the way and the methodology. So it's really refreshing. It's this whole sort of breath of fresh air. There are other cultural standards in the world, of course, like halal, kosher, that have very specific requirements for culture that anybody can get certified to and verified to. But it's emerging here really powerful. And there's all sorts of models emerging. Some are individual farms. There's probably one of the most premier organic yogurts in New Zealand is also Hua Parakore certified in the supermarkets, so it's recognised. But it's the marketing and promotion of it is small. But it's included in our regulations as well. It's a recognised cultural standard. It's great.
So that's fantastic. But I'm just wondering, so with so many different categories of verification and so forth that you've named, is there a kind of are the consumers looking at organic certification as less? But when they look at the label on the packaging, are they not putting so much, because there's so many things to choose from?
Yeah.
Are they still looking at the organic?
Floris, you're reading my mind. Stop doing that. You're reading my mind here. So that's a great question. Yeah. And to the audience, I don't know how she did that, but that was a really good question. So, here's where we're at the moment nationally here in New Zealand so we've got this regulation, and one of our key tasks that we're working on, that we've talked to everybody on, because you're absolutely right, the greenwashing is just this hocus pocus. We were worried before about spray free and this. I mean, There's over 200 environmental claims. Anybody can claim they're climate friendly, carbon neutral, I'm this, I'm that, look at me, I'm zero. I mean, it's so confusing to the consumer that a key task in our Act, Section 13, is to create a national mark. Now, the way I was taught organic as a younger man in my experience is organic is like the big tent, right? It's the big tribe. We're all kind of in the tent. You can call yourself anything you want inside there. You can be any sub-tribe and do your thing within that. You can be an agroecology and a biological husbandryist and whatever you want to name yourself, who are parakuri. It's all cool. But the big family, the common culture is what is the principles and practices that which makes us, I don't really know anybody here, but I feel like we're family.
Yeah.
Because it's a common culture of understanding in this big tent. And I can appreciate your sub-tribe and what you do and how you do that. I'm a forest gardener, for example. That's my gig. I've started out in forestry. We've got a lot of forestry and we've got gardens in between. So it's much more of a woody forest environment. But unless we have a common understanding of that mark, and the current discussion we're having with our government here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, is we need to get that mark right, because it becomes a total communication tool. And we were just talking with a great guy, Nick Lampkin, a sort of granddaddy of organic up in Europe, the other day about his analysis of all the stuff going on in Europe, is that we've been so focused on the market and growth and numbers and sell, we've forgotten to socialize. And unless we communicate who we are at a heart level, we will. So I think the creation of a national mark is really important. And the other one to conceptualize for everybody who has or is in this process is now we have a standard. It's like a line in the sand. You're either there, you could be better than there, or under. And in the country, we've never had that before. So we can grade ourselves. And let's remember that organic isn't a quality mark. It's got nothing to do with quality. I could be an organic wine producer and it's like vinegar and no one wants to drink it, but it could still be certified organic. There's nothing stopping me getting it certified. So it's not a quality mark. And it is to say that I've met a certain standard, like my driver's license or things like this. And I think we've become besotted. We've become so focused on all the rules and regulations. We've now got to get back to the softer human fun. We've stopped having fun, Floris, and we've got to start having some more fun and celebrating our success. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's on a good note. That's a fantastic way to wrap it up. I'm so grateful to have had this time to speak with you, Brendan, and learn so much from you. I will continue to do the work that I do, as I know you will continue to do the work that you do. And I really look forward to learning a bit more about how the one thing that worries me is that I'm able to I know that I'm able to move forward and learn more and adjust and so forth. But for the people in the community, in a small community, I don't know how to strengthen that. And I think that's where you've hit it on the mark with, as a collective, as our organizations, we need to come together, whether we partner with each other and help support to pull the other one up. That is exactly the spirit of where I would continue my work and continue working with INOFO as well. So thank you so much for this evening. Thank you to our moderators, our technical people at the back there. And I wish you all the best, Brendan. Thank you so much. I hope we can have more conversations.
Never give up. Never give up. Keep going.
All right. Thank you. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time and participation. We hope you found this session both informative and valuable. For further inquiries, partnership opportunities, or to learn more about becoming a member of the Inter-Continental network of organic farmers organizations, we encourage you to visit our website. You can also stay updated on our latest news and upcoming events by following us on our social media platforms. Thank you, and see you at our next event.